Hi, friends. Today's episode is part of our summer survival series. I pulled some of my absolute favorite episodes from the archives of 3 and 30 to re air them during these busy summer months because I hope they'll help you to thrive during this amazing but also exhausting time of year. You'll get a throwback to our old podcast intro and music, and you might hear some references within the conversation that are outdated, but we consider this episode one of the best we've ever had on 3 and 30, and we knew we needed to bring it back for an encore in case you missed it the first time it aired, or just need a refresher. We'll be back with new episodes in August, so make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast in your listening app so you'll be notified when new episodes drop. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you're having a beautiful summer and that this episode will help. Jen, welcome to 3 and 30. I am so excited to be talking with you today.
I'm so excited to be here, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Today we're going to be talking about organization for summer, and I know that this is your expertise. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help women and families prepare their spaces so that they can have happier lives.
I'm the founder of Reset Your Nest, which is a professional home organizing business based out of Utah. What I love to share and do is create practical tips and takeaways and content for families to be able to apply organizational principles in their own home
Mm.
beyond what my business can do, or in addition to what my business can do when you hire us. So I
Yeah.
love sharing all my things.
And systems that they can maintain long term for their home. And I love watching your tutorials on Instagram. They blow my mind. You're so talented. And I wish you could just come do my whole house. Maybe
Thank
someday we'll
you.
have to make that
Maybe
happen.
someday, I know. Reset Your Nest will come to Idaho. I'd love
It'd
it.
be so fun. But in the meantime, for those of us that can't have you come to our homes this summer, today we're going to talk about 3 areas that moms can organize this summer that will make things more smooth during the busy months. So, why don't you just start in with your first takeaway?
Okay, awesome. The first space we're going to talk about is the car. So,
Mhm.
takeaway number one in regards to car organization is be prepared. And I have found, I don't know if anyone is in the same boat as me, but in the summer, we're in the car more than normal, doing more adventure type things, maybe less lessons and going to school. But whether it's a road trip or just fun adventure outings, I have found myself many times with wet or muddy kids, or mosquito bites, or a bee sting, or just tired, hungry, sunburned, whatever it is, kids. And I have learned through trial and error that having a very prepared car can
Mm.
be invaluable.
Yes. So, how do you do that? You're like the queen of little hacks and tips and tricks, and I want this episode to be full of those. So, what do you put in your car and how do you store it in your car?
So I started with a list of the things that every time I feel like I've forgotten something, or if I can remember a time where I forgot something, I start a list. So one time when I went through the drive through and there were no forks for my salad, I added that to the list. And slowly I had a list. I know you can't take everything in the kitchen sink in your car, but the items that I thought I would really like to have a pair of scissors in my car. My kids always get in the car without their hair being done. It would be really nice to have a spray bottle and a comb. So I wrote my list, and then I know every car is different, but lots of cars have a middle console. If your car has a middle console, I love to use photo boxes. They come in two different sizes. There's a 4x6 and a 5x7, and they're great because they're sturdy and they're small enough that multiples can fit in most car consoles, but they can also create division and
Mm.
contain certain categories. So I found those to be super helpful. I also love zipper pouches that you can get anywhere. Those work great in a glove box. I love little car garbage cans. There are all different types that you can find even on Amazon. It's nice to have garbage cans all over the car. So just little items that are made for cars or small enough to fit in cars can be super handy.
Yeah. I love the idea of sort of keeping a mental note. I mean, did you do it in a note on your phone, that list? That's usually where I keep stuff.
Yes, I keep all my lists.
Yeah. So
Notes.
when you have the thought right then, gosh, I wish I had a whatever right now, you open your phone and you add a note to add that to your car organization. And in that center console, you're right. If there's the division, it stays looking way better and also more accessible than if you just throw everything in there. You the hair stuff and the scissors and the fork, if it's just all in there, that's not that helpful. But if you have a
Right.
little container for each, what are the different containers that are in your center console right now? What do you keep in there?
Let me think. I know I have one that's for sunscreen and Neosporin and Band-Aids, so more like a first aid
Mhm.
section. And then I think I keep my scissors with my hair items. So I have a few hair ties, little mini spray bottle, and a comb. I also have like the forks and napkins in one.
Mhm.
I keep tissues and little wipes in another one. So I have everything labeled, and there are some things that will switch out between winter and summer.
Mhm.
I'll stock more sunscreen in the summer and keep the ice scraper in the winter. Because I'm on the go so much, I keep a few granola bars. In the summer, I keep things in there that don't get bad when they're hot as easily.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
always keep a couple water bottles just in case
Yeah.
we run low.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have my kids said, like, I am starving? And I'm like, I literally have nothing for you,
Yeah,
So to have something. And I think this would be a really fun thing to involve your kids in brainstorming. What would we like to have in the car that would help us feel prepared? Sometimes I worry that I'm over preparing, overcompensating for my kids. Like, if I always have everything at the ready for them, they're never going to learn to think ahead for themselves, or they're never going to learn to sit in discomfort for a minute when they're hungry because mom always has a granola bar in the compartment to hand to them. But if you turn it into more of a family where you talk about this principle, what could we put in our car? How could we get prepared? You're not helicoptering them as much as teaching them your process for taking care of yourself and them so that they will have those tools when they get older. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. I love that. And I have used that too as a learning experience when there hasn't been water, when there hasn't been something that they want, and they're hopefully not complaining, but expressing
My kids are complaining.
frustration on a small level, then I'll say, "That is a great idea. Let's plan ahead, let's add it to the list." I explain the process so they know that things don't just magically appear, that their life
Yes.
isn't just magically comfortable and everything's always there, that even I, their mom, who tries to be very organized, I have moments where I forget things and, lesson learned, but this is how next time we can make sure that it's better. So I think having just an open discussion about how that process works.
Yeah, the process. I am not naturally organized. I'm kind of scattered. And so my organization is very compensatory. Like I have to do these things. Otherwise, I'm naturally kind of a disaster. And I think my kids know that about me. And so I try to talk that through with them. Like, because I know I always forget water bottles, I keep these here. So I'm really trying to show them the skills for compensating for their own kind of weak spots in adulthood, or we'll have this conversation about like every time before we leave on a road trip, you guys should get yourselves a water bottle and a snack because I'm not going to remember, you know?
Yeah.
So, kind of having these organized systems for the car. One of my favorite things that I keep in our car is little card games. We'll keep like Uno or Sleeping Queens, some of those that are small for if we get stuck waiting somewhere, like at a restaurant or just different times when we're at a soccer game, my son's upset that he has to be there, my daughter's playing. Like, there's just something for us to pull out and do that's fun to minimize some of the whining and the drama. And that's like one of my favorite things, especially for road trips to keep in the car.
That is brilliant. I love that. We always have a couple notepads that have the like hangman. I think they're called card game notepads, but I love the idea of just having an actual deck of cards of one of your favorite games. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And then another thing I've tried to do for my car in recent years is develop some systems for right when we get home from a trip. I try to take everything out and I try to make my kids help. I'm not the best at being consistent with them, but I try to get them to know we all unload it and then I vacuum it right away. And so it's
Yes.
just like a trigger. As soon as we're home, kids are unpacking and I'm vacuuming and we get that car cleaned up. And it helps so much versus just waiting till some unspecified time when I'll vacuum out the car. It never happens. And then my
Yeah.
car is just a disaster. It makes me feel like a failure as a human every time I get in there.
Yes. We've all been there. We've all been
Yeah.
there. I love that, and I think that's so great in theory because it doesn't always happen for me
Hmm.
either. But another thing, one of my categories is car cleaning supplies. So I always keep that same spray bottle that I use for my kids' hair with a window cloth, and then wipes that I can use in my car, and I have a little hand vac.
Mm.
So when I'm going through the car wash, we can pull everything out and I can have my kids clean their windows, the insides at least, where they're always like drawing with their fingers and making me so mad because they're getting my
Mhm.
windows disgusting. So that's another routine that we've tried to establish is that when we're going through the car wash, we pull everything out and try and wipe down and vacuum
Yeah,
and
I love
clean
that,
windows
and you're
in the car.
involving them. I have
Yeah.
to say one of the most bewildering things to me as a mom is when I realized that my kids were wiping their hands on the car ceiling. Have your kids done that?
Oh,
And you see those, like, finger streaks, and you're
that
like,
makes
"What
me like,
is that?"
shh.
And then you're like, "That is my kids. They're using the ceiling as a napkin." Like, who are these pigs? I
I am
raised
like
them.
shuddering. I would lose my mind. But we do have a lot of feet on our ceiling because they climb over the seats and their shoes hit the ceiling. So that's a pet peeve. But
Yeah,
all
ugh.
kids do it.
Maybe that means I need to keep napkins or paper towels more easily accessible to them so that they don't think that it's acceptable to wipe their hands on the ceiling. So,
See, that's a great way to turn it around and come up with a
yeah,
solution.
and be a little bit of a detective. It sounds like you're a detective. That was a takeaway. One of my friends who's an organizer, in one of her early episodes she did on the podcast Candy Kid, she talked about being a detective in your own home and looking for where the problem spots are and coming up with a solution or a system around that area to work with that area. So it sounds like that's what you've done in your car. Let's take a quick break to thank this episode's sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. I'm craving slow days of summer, but our pace with kids almost 10 and 13 seems to be anything but slow. Between camps for Noah and Sally, work for Ryan and me, and summer travels, we have a lot going on. I'm truly grateful for shoes that help make my summer wardrobe easy. I personally like wearing shoes around the house, and my Kimmy sneakers from Vionic are perfect for just that. Even better, I can go from recording a podcast episode to jumping in the car without a second thought. Sometimes I forget to grab my wallet or phone, but hey, at least I'm wearing shoes. If you or a loved one is in need of a new pair of shoes, I recommend trying Vionic. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee because shopping online, you can never be totally sure something is going to fit right. So Vionic says wear them, love them, or return them for a full refund. Use code 3 and 30 at checkout for 15% off your entire order at www.vionicshoes.com when you log into your account. That's code 3 in 30 at checkout for 15% off your entire order at VIONIC shoes.com when you log into your account. One time use only, Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. My friends, I'm sure you've heard this before, but living in the digital age is such a unique time where we're able to see what family, acquaintances, celebrities, and influencers are doing and buying all the time. We're told things like social media is just a highlight reel and it's not real life. But regardless, getting so much input can directly or subtly affect our mental health. Sometimes it's hard to know how to move forward when we feel overstimulated and overwhelmed by all the info and inspiration flying at us. Therapy has helped me spend less time comparing and instead feel more self assured in what's best for me and my family. If you're thinking of trying therapy, I suggest BetterHelp. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Start by filling out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. BetterHelp offers individual and couples therapy, as well as therapy for teenagers if you recognize that your child could use some support. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/3 in 30 today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/3 in 30. This podcast is sponsored by Molly Suds, laundry and household cleaning products founded by a pediatric nurse and mom that are safe for the whole family without toxic additives. Part of being a mom is helping the whole family make healthy choices. And being healthy is not just about what goes into your body, it's also about what goes on it. That's why I made the switch to non-toxic laundry and cleaning products from Molly Suds. They offer powerful laundry detergents and household cleaners made with safer ingredients. I'm loving their laundry detergent pods because they smell great and work well. And along with the detergents, I'm using the chlorine-free whitening powder that has a light lemon scent and the dryer sheets with a light lavender scent. There are only 4 ingredients in the unscented detergents and only 6 in the scented detergents. That is shocking compared to most brands you see on the shelves at the grocery store. Clean powerfully and live fearlessly with Molly Suds today. Pick up Molly Suds on your next Target run or order through my exclusive URL to get 20% off all Molly Suds products. To get this fantastic deal, go now to mollyssuds.com/3 in 30 and use code 3 in 30 at checkout. Again, for 20% off, go to mollyssuds.com/3 in 30 and use code 3 in 30 at checkout.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually is a good segue for takeaway too, because
Perfect.
we're going to talk about the garage because we know we're using the garage much more in the summer. Kids are in and out all the time.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we're preparing for fun adventures with our family. But my takeaway number two for the garage is to identify those pain points. So, really
Mm.
recognizing what is it that is driving me crazy and then coming up with a solution, creating a system that everyone can get on board with. And in some garages with clients, I've noticed that there are a lot of different pain points, and maybe you can't find good solutions for all of them because we don't have 6-car garages. Because if your
Mhm.
pain point is the tools and the lawn care items and your camping gear and all the kids' bikes and scooters, there might just not be enough room. But if you choose your top 2 ways that you want your garage to be used, I think that is a good way to start to focus on those systems and solutions and hopefully ease some frustration that comes with a messy garage.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Like if you have all of that stuff in there and you do choose your 2 areas, you just ignore everything else or kind of walk me through that?
That is a good question. So you don't ignore everything else. But for example, I think sometimes we ask too much of our garage. And if you have a 2-car garage and you want to park your cars in it, and you also have a ton of stuff. Sometimes we either need to downsize or pare down or just find another location. So, my husband and I had a sit down a couple years ago and we decided that we really wanted our garage to be a place where our kids stored their items like bikes and scooters and we wanted to park our cars. So up until that point, we had always had big shelves in our garage and stored, all of our holiday decor and our camping gear. And we really don't go camping very much. We only go like 2 times a summer.
Mhm.
So for us, it made sense to move all of those bins, all the shelving units out and find another place for them in a storage room. I know not everyone has that ability, but we moved it out so we could clear the clutter in our garage and create a system for bikes and scooters that would work so that we could
Mhm.
then also park in our garage. So I think being really realistic about the space that you have and what your garage can accommodate. If it can accommodate all your things, then go for it. But it's a big project to tackle organizing your garage. So I would take it one pain point at a time.
Yeah.
So maybe start with bikes, then move on to tools.
Yeah. I like the point you made about I laughed when you said sometimes we ask too much of our garage. It's so true and we just want it to be everything. We want it to fit and be and do everything and really it's not realistic. I have a feeling you've probably organized some smaller homes or smaller spaces. So, like for me, we have a 2-car garage and we have a house that does not have a basement and it does not have a single storage closet in it. And so, pretty much everything has to be in the garage. Ugh, what am I supposed to do? Help me, Jen. What would you do?
That's a really good question. I know, and it's really hard. And this is where solutions are hard. I love some garages aren't tall enough for this, but the overhead storage, those hanging racks can be
Mhm.
awesome for things that you really are only getting to once a year. We bought a storage shed because we really don't have that big of a storage closet, but we do have a storage closet in our basement where we can put holiday decor and camping stuff. We bought a storage shed just from Costco
Mm.
that holds our snowblower and our lawnmower and all yard related items so that we could
Mhm.
really have our garage focus on a few tools, kids stuff, and our cars.
Yeah.
So I don't know, creating that storage space, I never ever recommend getting a storage unit because I think that that is an expense and I think it gives us permission to just get more
Hoard.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I think finding creative ways to either do those hanging racks, paring down
Mhm.
a storage shed that's on site, I think is a nice solution for those big awkward things.
Yeah, and some of those seasonal things, like you only use the snow blower in the winter, it doesn't need to be in your garage, that can be out in the storage shed, and lawnmower,
Yeah.
vice versa, depending on the season.
Yeah, and I really like rotating things. So we have a little attic space too, and we shove all of our sleds up there in the summer, and then we put our little kid kayaks up there in the winter. So we just try
Mm,
and get things that aren't being used at the time as out of the way as we possibly can.
yeah, and when you think about it, like holiday decor that really only needs to be accessed once a year, like figuring out, is there some corner or some creative place we could store this in our home that we can get to once a year, but it's not visible and in our way every single day,
Right.
as we're coming in and out.
Yeah, you see that garage. I mean, that's the first thing you see
I
when you
know.
come home. It's the
Mhm.
last thing you see when you leave your home. Like you want like not angry, frustrated feelings to be
Yes,
felt every time you come
absolutely.
home.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about storage units, I have heard, and I think it's very true. Like, if something is in a storage unit, it means that you're not accessing it, you're not using it, so you could probably let it go. And that may not always be true for certain, like some equipment or different things that you might need very occasionally. But for the most part, I think that that's true. And so I feel like I'm pretty good at decluttering and streamlining, but I think I need to do it even more because our garage is a little bit out of control. So you're
I know, it's
inspiring me.
hard. Well, it's hard too because depending on your space, like, people with smaller spaces and less storage, sometimes that really sets even smaller limits, and
Yeah.
it's just part of living in certain type of space.
Yeah. And it is what it is. So you just got to work with it.
Yeah.
And then what is your third takeaway?
Okay, so the space that we're gonna be talking about are all types of kid spaces, so toy rooms, kid rooms. But takeaway number 3 is get your kids involved. And we talked
Mm,
about this a little bit with the car, but especially with kid spaces, it's such a great opportunity in the summer when kids are actually home for them to become invested in how their home functions, but especially their spaces, the spaces that
mhm.
they're living in. And I found with kids that when they have a say, and when you're working with them, instead of imposing a system on them, a way to fold their clothes or even where their clothes go, they're much more likely to maintain that system. And it's funny because
Mm.
every kid is so different. I found that every kid has things that work for them
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah, and again, you're teaching them how to think like an organizer, how to think in systems when you sit down and you do this with them. You say, "Okay, I noticed this is a problem area." For my son, the Legos are always all over the floor. They're everywhere. You can't find what you need. I can't walk through the room without dying. Let's come up with a system. And you brainstorm and you work together and you're teaching them those skills for that. And my son, I'm very grateful to report. I have another friend. I don't know why I have so many friends that are organizers, but I am grateful. I have another friend, Holly, who came to visit me and she helped us come up with the system for the Legos that Noah was involved in. We just got some plastic, just little shelves that pull out. I think they're meant for bathrooms. I would have gotten a prettier like IKEA system, but I live 500, maybe not 500 miles, but lots of miles away from IKEA. It's in another state. So we just got these little plastic drawers and we did them by color. And Holly, Noah, and I sat with this big, huge pile of Legos and we sorted them into the drawers of the different colors. And I'll have to put a picture on Instagram or somewhere because he has kept that system for 18 months.
No way. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And he loves it because he can find the pieces. He knows
Mhm.
all of his pieces, which blows my mind that he knows exactly what piece he's looking for. And now he can find it because he knows what color it is and he pulls the drawers out. And of course, he builds and it gets messy, but then he just knows I sort them back into colors and I put them away. This is a kid who is extremely messy and he has maintained that system because he was part
Wow.
of creating it. So
Yeah.
that is a testimonial for your takeaway here.
That is a testimonial if I've never heard one, because
Yeah.
Legos are very tricky, but I totally agree. I think when kids have boundaries and their ideas are heard and respected and they're considered, and then they also invest that time initially to put the system into place, then
Hmm.
you're going to find a lot more success.
Yeah. We sat on the floor and listened to "Everything is Awesome" on repeat while we sorted the Legos, which was obnoxious, but that's what he wanted, so we went with it. So, do
That's
you have
great.
other suggestions for Lego storage or for other tricky you've organized a lot of homes, like, what are some of the common tricky things about kids' rooms, and what are some solutions you found?
Yeah, Legos, I think, is at the top of the list of a lot of moms' pain points, and For me, we tried the color organization and it didn't work. Right now, our Legos are in a big under the bed box, so it's flat, so it has a big surface area, so my kids can just dump it out. Yours is a much more beautiful system, but again, just really talking to your kid and not enforcing or
Mm,
imposing an idea on them. Kids' clothes can be really tricky. I've done this for clients, but also my own daughter is at the age of like 2 was changing her outfit 7 plus times a day.
mm,
And so coming up with a system for her where we would choose our outfits at the beginning of the week, put an outfit in a hanging shoe organizer in her closet so that she knew what she was going to wear, and really trying to teach that we wear one outfit a day unless we change it for another activity. And then for a while, she's now outgrown it, but I would keep her clothes up. The rest of her clothes would be up high in a closet so she couldn't even access them because it was such
mm.
a problem. And that
Yeah,
was a unique solution, but it just showed that I was trying to solve for the child and not for what I thought would
yeah,
work best.
or like the most Pinterest worthy looking system. It was like for
Right.
this child, the clothes need to be up high. And so the shoe organizer, I can envision it was long and you put the outfit in for each day. There's like 5 slots or whatever, and you put them in
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
And you choose the outfits with her so she feels like she has a say, and then the rest of the clothes go
Exactly.
up out of reach.
Yep. So when I did the laundry for the week, we'd bring up the clean laundry, and as we folded it, we would decide on outfits together. And then she would choose which pocket it would go into so that
Yeah,
if she knows that Friday is the day that you wear your school shirt, then we already had it in place for Friday so that she could wear her school shirt.
perfect.
School papers, I like to let my kids, I mean, I throw away 99.9% of what they bring home from school, but
Mhm.
I let them always pick out if there's something that's meaningful or a piece of artwork. I say, "Is this meaningful to you? Would you like to keep this?" And we keep it. And then the end of the school year, we go through those papers again and they put them in a place that's more permanent so that they can keep them as mementos. But I
Mhm.
let them choose.
Where do you store them in the interim, and where do you store them once they're like the final picks?
That's a great question. In our little family command center, each kid has just a folder. I also have a folder of things that need to be filed more permanently, and I have a folder for receipts. So if report cards or anything that might want to be kept, or even things from teachers at the beginning of the school year, it just goes in their folder, and that's where it stays all school year. And then at the end of the school year, we move them to each of my children have a binder. I like the binder system. I know some people do like the big totes with the hanging files.
Mhm.
But I love the binders because it's like a book. So every year when we pull them out and put in there things from the previous school year, they're actually reminiscing and looking through preschool and kindergarten and all the fun things they've kept. And it
Mhm.
also sets a clear boundary because the binder is only so big. And my hope is that when they leave for college or whatever it is someday, that they don't have this massive hundreds and hundreds of papers, but they have
Mm.
something that's fun that gives them a glimpse into what their handwriting looked like and what fun art projects they did. And then there are other great solutions out there like Archive and ways that you can do it more professionally. But for us, the binder system has just been a nice way to keep it contained, but also a fun memory.
Yeah. So I have one child that is more of a keeper and one child that lets things go easily, which I think is probably pretty usual. How do you have that with your kids, different kids having different sort of tolerance level for letting things go? And how do you teach your kids? Do you organize their rooms with them? Do you sort of sneakily make some stuff disappear? Like, what's your method as a professional organizer mother? How do you teach your kids some of these skills?
Yeah, that is a great question because each kid is so, so different. And it's so funny to see the things they want to hold on to. And this really, I mean, with whatever, whether it's a rock collection or just treasures that get out of control, there is an element of if a room is not staying clean, as a mother, this is not what I do as a professional organizer, but I will go in and if I've asked multiple days in a row for a room to be clean and it's just cluttered with, items that have been collected from birthday parties and different things, I do a swipe of the room and I do get rid of anything that I know will not be missed without them
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
That's for the ones who really like to hang on to things, but I feel like most of my kids over time have learned that if we create a clear boundary, so each kid has a bin for memories that they want to hold on to, but they don't want to play with actively, and that goes up high in their closet. So we add to that bin and then we take away from that bin too when it
They're
gets
ready.
full to overflowing.
Mm.
And then they also have another place where they keep treasures or toys that they currently want to play with and keep in their room that are special to them. And I think for the most part, they really do a good job as I ask them questions, how often do you play with this? Do you like this? Do you want to put this with our toys so everyone can play with it in the family room? Your treasures are overflowing, so we need to make sure that there's room for everything so you can actually see it. So as I talk them through, there's a limited amount of space. As much
Mhm.
as we'd like to keep everything, we can't. So we can either keep it somewhere else or you can donate it to someone who would enjoy it because it's not getting enjoyed right now because you're not playing with it.
Yeah.
Those types of conversations have helped even my more hoarder like children
To
create
let
boundaries.
go. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I do feel like, again, you're teaching them skills as you go through this process with them that hopefully they'll be able to use for the rest of their life. I also do sometimes the sweep without them knowing. I have a box that's like I'm not gonna get rid of this yet just in case they ask about it, but I sometimes just stuff out of sight, they'll never ask about it again, and it's like, this is, like, junky stuff that I'm never gonna take something that they really love and put it in there. And I just keep it in that box and keep it in the garage for 6 months, and if they haven't asked about it, then I donate it. That's kind of one of my
Yeah.
systems.
I love that technique. I think that works great with like clothing items even for me, just to like set aside just to get it out of sight and to see, did I really miss it? Like I was worried I'd miss it. Did I really miss it or did my kids miss it? So I just think that's
Yes.
brilliant and that's a really great technique.
Yeah. And I also think that summer is a great time to sit down. Like if you have a lazy day and you have some time, sit down and do their room with them because it is a process. It can take several hours to go through it all and talk them through it. And when I do that with my kids, sometimes I'll give them like, let's do this and then we can go get ice cream, because it's hard. It's hard work to figure this stuff out, but summer would be a great time to do it. So I'm glad that you brought this takeaway.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We'll always choose one day for each kid. I never take
Mm,
on more than one kid's bedroom in a
no.
day because it's
Mm-mm.
definitely a big project and it needs your focus and their focus.
Totally. Well, Jen, this has been so, so helpful. I know moms are going to be I can just envision the 3 and 30 listeners turning off this podcast and like getting their plastic trash bags and going to town in their house. We're all going to be organizing this week. If women want to learn more from you, where can they find you?
You can always find me on Instagram at Reset Your Nest, and then my website is the same. I have a blog and post some really good tips there as well.
Yeah, and I'm subscribed to your newsletter and I love getting, you send out some great tips, practical, always really practical. So women can get signed up for that, I'm sure, on your website for your newsletter.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Thank you, Rachel.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you have a really great day.
Thank you. You too.
I am so inspired by Jen and her approach to organization. I especially appreciate how she includes her family so they can work together to create systems that will help make all of their lives easier. Not just her life as a mom, because how sustainable would that be if it were only for one person's benefit? I also love how Jen says that there is a limited amount of space in the house, and as much as we'd like to keep everything, we simply can't. To recap, here are Jen's takeaways for 3 spaces to organize for the most summer fun. First, your car. Think about what you might need in order to be prepared during a summer outing and make sure it's stored neatly in your car. Do you often need hair stuff for your kids, utensils or napkins, scissors, a change of clothes for everyone in case people get wet unexpectedly? Include your children in this brainstorming session so they recognize the work it takes to be prepared. And remember that you can use photo boxes or zipper pouches to contain and organize small things in your center console, in the pockets on the back of seats, or stored in a bin in the trunk. Second, take a day or two in the coming weeks to organize your garage. Identify pain points and create customized systems in your garage to make life easier in this specific season. As Jen says, sometimes we ask too much of our garage. Identify what is the most important use of your garage space right now for the summer. Maybe it's bikes, scooters, tools, or camping gear, and find a way to downsize or relocate the rest. And third and finally, use these long summer days to work with your kids to organize their bedrooms and play spaces. When kids have a say, instead of imposing a system on them, they are much more likely to maintain the system. And remember that sometimes you'll have to try a couple of different ideas to figure out what works. Don't give up. Keep working with your child to find a solution that will work for them. I hope these takeaways inspire you to tackle some of the pain points in your home or your car, or at least give you the encouragement you need to make a small change to make these crazy summer days a little simpler. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great week with your family.